As each generation evolves and advanced and readily available technology, we as a species are getting worse and worse at being bored. I'm bored. I'm bored. I'm bored. I am bored. I'm bored. I used to think being bored was a bad, negative feeling that I shouldn't really talk about because it seems lazy, ungrateful, and very negative for most people. If you tell anyone I'm so bored, they would just say, go do something. Entertain yourself. Go watch a movie. Get lost in the internet.
Get your fucking ass up and work.
And wait for the best one. Don't complain, your life is too easy. That's why you're bored. As children, even though maybe we were never told that way, most of us were conditioned to always be entertained, either with toys, playtime, technology, gaming, social media, or always be doing something like learning, playing sports, music, doing homework, and housework, which are all really healthy activities for everyone, whether you are adults or children. I think children, and of course adults as well, need to spend their time wisely to fulfill their 5 core emotional needs, including secure attachment, sense of identity, freedom to express needs and emotions, spontaneity and play, and realistic limits and self-control. The last one, realistic limits and self-control, is often one of the weakest points in children because they don't understand why it is important. Simply telling someone this is good or bad is not really a convincing explanation, and they don't know how to incorporate structure in their life. That is usually the parent's job. However, if whenever a child is bored or has a need that is immediately satisfied every time the child wants something, they don't really get much exercise in terms of patience, waiting, limits, and self-control, which in a way can also be associated with self-regulation of emotions. The reason I am talking about children is because it is irrelevant whether you are a child or an adult. We all have an inner child living inside us, no matter what age you're at. The child inside you still have that 5 emotional needs. In fact, there is one more need, the 6th need, which I didn't mention: realistic standard and reciprocity. Basically a need for balanced expectations and mutual respect in relationship, where one does not feel they need to be perfect to the standard and to sacrifice oneself for pleasing others all the time. This is also related to the need for autonomy and a sense of identity, and of course, also secure attachment. We all want to see a happy child. Nobody likes seeing a child cry. So as we grow into adults, many of us also carry this belief that we should always be happy. We should never feel bored or be bored, especially as an adult, because we should be able to take care of ourselves, right? We shouldn't be a child anymore. We keep trying to find ways to entertain ourselves, running away from boredom because maybe we feel ashamed of this feeling. Maybe for you, boredom equates to a feeling of sadness and depression. Maybe when you are bored or sad, your parents were not responding in a positive way, and you see that as a failure of not being able to please them. There can be a million reasons why you associate this feeling of boredom or anything other than happiness and excitement with negativity and something that is bad and shameful. But is being bored really that bad as we think it is? Many of us would agree that it is not a tragedy to feel bored. But I want to challenge that even more by saying that being or feeling bored can actually benefit us in many ways. First, I want to bring your attention to the dopaminergic pattern in our brain. If you have watched my recent videos, you probably have heard me talking about the neurotransmitter molecule called dopamine. I go quite in depth in the video of It Is Okay to Be Different, so check that out if you want a more detailed interpretation of how abusing the dopaminergic system can lead to addiction. Basically, as a human being, we cannot physically and neurologically be happy and feel pleasure all the time. That's just how we are designed by God. We are designed to feel good for reaching a reward and then feel a bit not so good afterwards, so that we could feel good again when we reach another reward. This follows the dopamine peak and dip above and below baseline all the time. Every day when the dopamine peaks, we feel good. That is what drives us to want to do it again. That's why they say dopamine is the universal currency for motivation. When the dopamine dips below the baseline, we don't feel so good. Maybe we feel a bit bored, sad, or lethargic, but that is completely natural. It is okay. It is how we are designed. It is healthy. The higher the dopamine peaks, the lower it dips below the baseline after. If we allow ourselves to be bored and be present with our feeling when we are in that dopamine dip, we allow the time for recycling and replenishing that dopamine pool in our brain. We become more sensitive to dopamine, which keeps us overall more content with a more balanced and stable rise and fall of dopamine levels than having high dopamine hits one after the other, decreasing the dopamine baseline and desensitizing the dopamine receptors, which means we feel less pleasure over time doing the same activities as before. So yeah, the number one benefit of allowing ourselves time to be bored is that it is just healthier for our brain to maintain chemical balance and protect us from falling into long periods of deep depression or anhedonia. And that's why just because somebody seems very wealthy, living in luxury, may not be as happy as some people living in a much poorer condition. If you have all the money and freedom but don't know how to use it properly, don't know how to give yourself the structure which your inner child needs to exercise self-control, if you don't know how to sit with boredom in life, you may be happy for a moment or two, but you will not be content and joyful overall. Life is fair in terms of the fact that all human beings can only experience pleasure to some extent. There is only so much a human can enjoy. The basic enjoyments between a human who seems to have it all and somebody who is working hard just about to put food on the table is not that different as we think. The latter, who wait because they have to, may in fact be at a much better position in feeling the joy of eating a plain bowl of rice than the former. Many people believe that once they elevate their life, become the upper class, they will be much happier. This is an illusion a lot of people fall into. But putting things into the perspective of our dopaminergic brain just destroys this illusion so beautifully. I love it. Second, being bored helps to build discipline and is a foundation to achieving goals. It may seem very counterintuitive if I put boredom next to achieving goals. On the surface, they are the opposite of each other. If you want to achieve a goal, you should work hard towards it. No time to be bored, right? But being or feeling bored does not always mean you are just staring at a wall and do nothing. There is nothing wrong with staring at a wall and do nothing. I think that if you use it as a form of meditation or reflection, could be very beneficial as well. But you can also feel bored doing tasks that seem or feel boring to do. You could be bored whilst doing house chores, training for a marathon, stretching your body, or practicing playing an instrument. When reaching any goals that take time and effort, it may take repeated training or routine to be fulfilled. And if I'm always chasing the fun and avoiding doing things that are boring to me, which they will be sometimes if you do it every day, all the time, then I may be more prone to giving up before anything starts to yield. I really enjoy talking about this because I feel as though I'm talking to myself. This is the stuff my younger self needed, and this is what I need to understand now about discipline. I used to think that discipline and I are just not friends. I really struggled with the battle between being overly controlling myself, and then feeling rebellious against it at the same time, because it feels terrible sometimes to be controlled, to feel restricted passively. This is often referred to as a passive-aggressive pattern in transactional analysis between the parent and a child within oneself. What causes this kind of passive-aggressiveness is the extreme polarization towards one end, or you can say being pulled to an irrational extreme view, either adopted by the parent or the child. What we want is not for parent and a child to fight forever, because that's not going to end up anywhere. What we want is for the parent to understand the child's need and not be so controlling in such an extreme way. But also the child needs to understand that not everything is fun all the time. There is time for fun and pleasure. There is time for boredom and waiting. If both parties can let loose a little, the adult in us can then make the best decisions for us to reach a common goal that all parts of us want to achieve naturally. That's what discipline is for me now. It is not about excessive self-control. It is about balance and mutual understanding between the parent and the child. The third benefit of being okay with being bored is increased freedom and autonomy. This is another paradoxical concept where someone may associate boredom with the feeling of being trapped, and at times, even if you choose to be bored, you could feel like you are limiting and restricting your freedom intentionally rather than increasing it. Freedom can have a slightly different definition for different people, so you may or may not agree with me on this one. For me personally, true freedom does not only mean the ability to choose and make my own unbiased decision, but also the feeling of not being trapped anywhere, not enslaved or being overly dependent on other things outside of me. Freedom is autonomy. Of course, this is a very absolute and abstract concept. And in the real world, we are still interdependent with each other on various other aspects, which seems to work somehow. So maybe none of us have the absolute freedom, but maybe we also don't necessarily need that to be okay. Without going too much off the tangent, the more we are chasing things that make us feel good in the moment, the more we depend on them for emotional regulation, which can make us less independent and autonomous. It may seem as though we are exercising our freedom to choose the fun and pleasure, to choose something more exciting, something better, but the moment we are hooked, we give our freedom away to that activity loop or that item. For example, the moment you see something you want, it could be a clothing item you saw someone wearing, it could be anything, but the moment you want something and cannot stop thinking about it, you're being trapped by that want and desire. You lose a little bit of your freedom to that if you hold on to want, which is basically the pleasure of anticipating having that thing you want. So actually, being bored, not partaking, anticipating, or fantasizing of having more and more things outside of you to make you happy allows you to be more independent, autonomous, and free of a lot of that mental noise. It frees up space in our head to appreciate what we already have, and if we're not unproportionally burdened by what we already have, we have more freedom. At least we feel more free and autonomous than having another thing or activity that enslaves us. With that being said, if what you have is giving you more burden than freedom without meeting any of your needs, then by all means get rid of it or make some changes to it. And if there is an opportunity in front of you that can drastically increase your freedom or help you get rid of some of the burden off your shoulder, then by all means go and receive your gift. If there's one thing you take away from this video, I want you to understand that no matter what you have, what you do, and how your standard of life is right now, there will always be moments of boredom, sadness, dullness, stress, and unhappiness in life. Instead of rejecting and running away from those feelings, learning to radically accept them as they are and stay with them gives us the power and freedom to make wiser decisions, improve the practice of discipline, and overall be more content in life. Whenever I see children play, I often think about how did a child who is so entertained by merely a ball become a teenager or adult who no longer finds anything interesting, except from the phone screen we all carry dear to our heart. I wonder when and how that happened, and I wonder if we could ever feel like a child again. Maybe with enough time spent with boredom, we can learn to appreciate more simple things we underlook a lot of time. Maybe, just maybe, we could be once again fascinated by merely a ball or a bicycle. I wonder what that would feel like once again. I wonder.